Introduction. The Ilani Threat. In the vast expanse of space, where stars twinkled like scattered diamonds on a velvet canvas, darkness loomed over countless worlds. The Ilani Empire, a ruthless conglomerate of alien races, had carved a path of destruction across galaxies, leaving nothing but ashes and despair in their wake. Their ships, sleek and menacing, moved with an eerie grace through the void, striking fear into the hearts of those who heard their name whispered in hushed tones. Commander Xander stood on the bridge of his flagship, aptly named Harbinger of Doom. His reptilian eyes glowed with a fierce intensity as he surveyed the desolation below him. The planet Xeria spun silently beneath them, its once vibrant cities reduced to smoldering ruins. The stench of charred flesh filled his nostrils as he recalled the screams of its inhabitants, screams that had been silenced forever by his fleet's advanced weaponry. "Set course for the Ander system," Xander commanded, his voice low and gravelly, reverberating through the metallic confines of his warship. His clawed feet tapped rhythmically against the cold metal deck as he paced back and forth, contemplating their next conquest. Let's see if they put up more of a fight. His crew moved swiftly to obey, their movements efficient and practiced. Xander envisioned his fleet descending upon planet after planet, bombarding them into submission before enslaving their people. Soon, he thought with grim satisfaction, all would bow before the might of the Ilani Empire. No one could resist their march toward domination, not even those who dared to call themselves human. Light years away, on a small space station orbiting Earth, distress calls began to flood in, pleas for help from worlds that had already fallen victim to Xander's merciless campaign. Each transmission was a haunting reminder of what awaited humanity if they did not act swiftly enough. Among those listening was Ethan Gordon, a hardened veteran soldier in Earth's Defense Force, EDF. His fists clenched tightly as he absorbed each desperate cry for aid, each voice snuffed out like a candle in a storm. Ethan turned to face a holographic display showcasing Earth's arsenal, ships bristling with weapons and soldiers ready for battle. It was an impressive force. Humanity had faced impossible odds before and emerged victorious time and again. But this time felt different. This time felt like an extinction event looming just over the horizon. "This is it," Ethan declared to his assembled troops, his voice hard as steel. "The Ilani think they're invincible, but they haven't faced us yet. It's time to show them what humans can do." The room erupted in fervent agreement. Determination radiated from every soldier present. They understood what was at stake. If Xander reached Earth with his fleet intact, it would mean annihilation for humanity and everything they held dear. Ethan took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. He would throw every last resource Earth had at these invaders. This was not just another battle. It was a fight for survival. As he gripped the edge of a holographic table, knuckles white with tension, an insistent blaring from the communications console interrupted his thoughts. "Commander," a crewman rushed over, eyes wide with urgency. "We've got an incoming vessel. Scanners indicate it's heavily damaged, but transmitting a distress signal." Ethan's brow furrowed as he considered their options. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded curtly. "Scan it thoroughly. If it checks out, let it board." Minutes later, Ethan stood in the shuttle bay as the battered vessel's hatch hissed open. The lone figure stumbled out, a blue-skinned alien whose clothing was tattered and burned from some unseen calamity. It raised its webbed hands in a gesture of peace. "Please," it gasped between labored breaths. "I am Arx. My world is gone, destroyed by the Ilani." Its black eyes were haunted with despair. "I have information vital to your war effort." Ethan exchanged glances with his crew. This could be their chance, a glimmer of hope amid encroaching darkness. "I know their next target," Arx continued urgently. "They plan to attack the Korak system." Ethan tensed at this revelation. Korak was known for its peaceful inhabitants, but also possessed advanced shielding technology that could turn the tide against any invading force if harnessed properly. "We have to protect them," he said firmly as he turned back to Arx. Get this man to the infirmary. I want a full debrief as soon as he's stable. Hours later, Ethan leaned over a star chart spread out before him on a holographic display, while Arx's warnings echoed in his mind like an ominous drumbeat. The Korek defenses were impressive, but not invulnerable. They wouldn't withstand a full-scale assault from Xander's forces. His finger traced over key points on the map where they could intercept Xander's fleet before it reached Korek. This was their only chance. "This is Commander Gordon." He activated ship-wide comms with resolve in his voice. "I need volunteers for a critical mission. We're going to hit the Ilani where it hurts." As murmurs rippled through, his crew members gathered around him. Ethan felt their energy shift from uncertainty to fierce resolve. "We're going to board Harbinger of Doom itself and knock out its weapons before they reach Korek," he continued passionately. A wave of cheers erupted around him. He could see fire igniting in their eyes, the same fire that had fueled humanity through centuries of struggle and conflict. "I won't lie to you," Ethan said gravely as he scanned each face before him. "This will be one of the most dangerous missions we've ever undertaken. But if we succeed—" He paused dramatically before finishing with conviction. "We buy time for our fleet to engage." As preparations began for what would be one fateful night in history, the night humanity would stand against its greatest threat, Ethan felt an unshakable sense that this was only just beginning. They were about to unleash hell upon those who sought to extinguish their light forever. With every heartbeat echoing like thunder in his chest, they moved forward into destiny, together as one force against an enemy that had never known defeat until now. Rallying humanity. The call to arms. The air was thick with tension as Ethan Gordon stood on the bridge of the Resolute, Earth's flagship, surrounded by his most trusted officers. The holographic display flickered with images of the Ilani fleet, their ships dark and foreboding against the backdrop of stars. The distress signals from distant worlds echoed in Ethan's mind, a haunting reminder of the stakes at hand. Commander Lena Hartman, his second in command, interrupted his thoughts. "We have to make a decision. The Korek system is vulnerable, and we need to act fast. If we wait too long, we'll lose our chance." Ethan nodded, his jaw set in determination. "You're right. We can't afford to hesitate. The Ilani are ruthless. They'll strike without mercy." He paused, taking a deep breath to steady himself. "We need to rally every ship and soldier we can muster. This isn't just about Korek. It's about saving humanity." His crew sprang into action, relaying orders across the ship and contacting Allied forces scattered throughout the solar system. Ethan felt a surge of pride as he watched them work. They were ready to fight, ready to defend their home against an enemy that had already decimated countless worlds. The call to arms. As the Resolute prepared for departure, Ethan gathered his team in the armory for a final briefing. The room buzzed with energy as soldiers checked their gear, ensuring that every weapon was loaded and every piece of armor was intact. "Listen up," Ethan shouted over the clamor, his voice cutting through the noise like a knife. "We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every person who has ever lived under the shadow of the Ilani Empire. We've seen what they do, how they destroy entire civilizations without a second thought. But today, we stand united." A cheer erupted from the assembled troops, their faces lit with determination and resolve. They were ready to face whatever horrors awaited them. "Remember," Ethan continued, pacing in front of them, "we have an advantage they don't expect, our tenacity and our will to fight for our freedom. They may have superior technology, but they underestimate us at their own peril." He felt a weight settle on his shoulders as he glanced at each soldier's face. These were not just comrades but friends, brothers and sisters in arms. They had trained together, fought together, and now they would face one of the greatest threats humanity had ever known. "Let's show them what humanity is capable of," he concluded, raising his fist in solidarity. With that rallying cry echoing in their hearts, they boarded their ships and set course for the Korek system. The journey to Korek as they traveled through space, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of dread that gnawed at him. He stared out into the void beyond the viewport, watching stars streak by as they entered warp speed. It was a beautiful sight, a stark contrast to the chaos that awaited them. "Commander," Lena's voice broke through his thoughts again. "We're receiving reports from Allied forces in the Korak system. They've detected Ilani ships approaching." Ethan's heart raced as he turned back to face her. "How many?" "Initial scans indicate a full fleet. At least 20 ships," she replied grimly. "Damn it," Ethan muttered under his breath. "We need to warn Korak immediately." He activated the comms system and broadcasted a message across all channels. "This is Commander Gordon of the Resolute. To all forces in Korak, prepare for an imminent attack from Ilani forces. Evacuate civilians and prepare defenses. We're en route to assist you." He could only hope it would reach them in time. Arx's revelation. As they neared Korak, Ethan gathered his team once more in a strategy meeting room aboard the Resolute. Arx had been brought aboard after being stabilized in medical bay. Now he was ready to share what he knew about the Ilani tactics. "Arx," Ethan began, leaning forward with intensity. "You've seen how they operate. What can you tell us about their strategy?" Arx nodded gravely, his blue skin still marred by burns from his escape. "The Ilani are relentless. They will strike hard and fast at your weakest points." His black eyes scanned the room filled with eager soldiers. "They will likely target your command ship first to disrupt coordination." Ethan exchanged glances with Lena. This confirmed their worst fears. "We need to protect our flagship at all costs," Lena said firmly. "Yes," Arx continued. "And if you can disrupt their communications during battle, it will create confusion among their ranks." Ethan considered this advice carefully. It was a sound strategy that could turn the tide if executed properly. "All right," he said decisively. "We'll split our forces into 2 groups. One will defend the Resolute, while the other will focus on disrupting their communications and targeting their command ships." The team nodded in agreement, each member understanding their role in this high-stakes operation. The battle begins. As they entered orbit around Korak, chaos erupted below them, a fierce battle already underway between Ilani ships and Korak's defenders. Explosions lit up the surface like fireworks against a night sky. "Deploy fighters," Ethan commanded as adrenaline surged through him. The Resolute shook under heavy fire as it positioned itself strategically above Korak's atmosphere. Fighter jets launched from their hangars like angry hornets swarming toward an intruder. Ethan watched intently as they engaged Ilani ships in dogfights above Korak's surface. "Commander, we're receiving distress signals from ground forces," Lena reported urgently. Ethan clenched his fists as he listened to pleas for help crackling through static-filled comms channels. "We can't let them down. Focus fire on those enemy ships targeting ground defenses." As lasers whizzed past them and explosions rocked their ship, Ethan felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility weighing heavily on him. Lives were at stake, innocent lives caught in a war not of their making. "Commander," a sensor officer shouted from across the bridge. "An Ilani capital ship is breaking formation. It's heading straight for us." Ethan's heart raced as he turned to see the massive warship barreling toward them like an unstoppable force. Braced for impact, he yelled as alarms blared throughout the Resolute. The ship shuddered violently under incoming fire as shields flickered dangerously low. A desperate defense. "Return fire," Ethan commanded fiercely as he gripped the edge of his command chair tightly. The crew worked frantically at their stations, targeting systems locking onto enemy vessels, while weapons discharged with deadly precision. But even as they fought back fiercely against overwhelming odds, Ethan knew that time was running out. The Ilani would not relent until they had crushed every last bit of resistance. "Commander, we need more power to shields," Lena shouted over the din of battle. "Divert all non-essential power now," he ordered without hesitation. The ship groaned under pressure as systems strained against demands placed upon them, but it held firm. Human ingenuity had crafted this vessel with resilience built into its very core. Ethan watched through gritted teeth as enemy fire rained down upon them, each impact sending tremors through their hull. But still they stood strong against adversity. Suddenly, a transmission came through from ARCs who had been monitoring communications closely from another station on board. They are coordinating an attack pattern. If you can disrupt their command ship's communication array. Ethan's eyes lit up with realization. This could be their chance. Lena, take a team down there now. Disrupt those communications. She nodded sharply before rallying her squad and rushing toward an exit hatch leading directly into one of their shuttle bays, a plan forming rapidly in her mind, even as chaos reigned around them. As she departed with her team on board another shuttle bound for enemy lines below him, Ethan felt both pride and trepidation swell within him. This was it, the moment where everything could change forever if only they could execute flawlessly amidst overwhelming odds. Hope amidst chaos. With Lena gone on her mission, and chaos continuing unabated outside, the bridge crew worked tirelessly under pressure while keeping morale high despite mounting casualties among both human defenders above Korak and ground forces below fighting valiantly against impossible odds themselves. But even amidst despair there remained hope, a flicker igniting within each soldier's heart fueled by camaraderie, forged through shared struggles over years, spent training together preparing themselves for battles yet unseen. And so they fought on, determined not just survive, but thrive against any foe threatening existence itself. The alien refugee, a glimmer of hope. The Resolute hung in orbit above the chaotic battlefield, a sentinel amidst the storm of war. Ethan Gordon stood at the command console, his eyes fixed on the swirling chaos below. The Korak system was under siege, and every second counted. The Ilani were relentless, their ships pouring fire onto the planet's surface, while desperate defenders fought to protect their homes. "Commander, we're receiving more distress signals from Korak," Lena Hartman reported, her voice tinged with urgency. "They're losing ground fast." Ethan clenched his fists, feeling the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. "We need to get down there," he said decisively. "We can't let them fall." As the crew scrambled to prepare for deployment, Ethan's mind raced with thoughts of ARCs, the alien refugee who had brought them vital intelligence about the Ilani's plans. He had risked everything to warn them. And now it was time for humanity to repay that debt. ARC's insight. In a small conference room aboard the Resolute, ARC sat with a few members of Ethan's team. His blue skin still bore signs of the trauma he had endured during his escape from the Ilani. Despite his injuries, his spirit remained unbroken as he shared what he knew about their enemy. The Ilani are not just conquerors, they are methodical in their approach, ARC explained, his voice steady despite the tremors of fear that danced in his eyes. They will exploit any weakness they find. Ethan leaned forward, intrigued. "What do you mean?" ARC gestured to a holographic display showing the layout of the Korak system. "They will target key installations, military bases, power plants, anything that can cripple your defenses. If they take out your command structure, chaos will ensue." Lena nodded thoughtfully. "So we need to protect those installations at all costs." "Yes," ARC affirmed. "And if you can disrupt their communications, it will create confusion among their ranks." Then felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. "We can use that to our advantage. If we can intercept their signals and mislead them about our movements." "Exactly," ARC replied, a glimmer of determination shining in his eyes. "All right," Ethan said decisively. "We'll split our forces into two groups. One will defend critical installations while the other focuses on disrupting Ilani communications." Preparing for battle. As they prepared for deployment, Ethan gathered his team once more in the armory. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Soldiers checked their gear and exchanged determined glances. "This is it," Ethan began, his voice firm and resolute. "We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every soul on Korak and beyond. The Ilani think they can crush us, but they haven't faced humanity's resolve yet. A cheer erupted from the assembled troops, their spirits bolstered by Ethan's words. "Remember," he continued, pacing in front of them like a lion preparing to lead its pride into battle. "We have something they don't: our tenacity, and our will to fight for our freedom. We will not go quietly into the night." With that rallying cry echoing in their hearts, they boarded their ships and set course for Korak. The descent as they descended through Korak's atmosphere, Ethan felt a mix of exhilaration and dread wash over him. Below them lay a world embroiled in chaos, a swirling maelstrom of fire and destruction as Ilani ships unleashed hell upon its surface. "Commander," a sensor officer shouted from across the bridge, "we've detected multiple Ilani vessels targeting civilian sectors." Ethan's heart sank as he realized what was at stake. "Divert all power to shields. Prepare to engage." The Resolute shuddered as it entered combat mode, weapon systems coming online with a satisfying hum. Ethan gripped the edge of his command chair tightly as he watched enemy ships swarm toward them like locusts. "Deploy fighters," he commanded as adrenaline surged through him. Fighter jets launched from their hangars like angry hornets swarming toward an intruder. Ethan watched intently as they engaged Ilani ships in dogfights above Korak's surface. "Commander, we're receiving distress signals from ground forces," Lena reported urgently. Ethan clenched his fists as he listened to pleas for help crackling through static-filled comms channels. "We can't let them down. Focus fire on those enemy ships targeting ground defenses." As lasers whizzed past them and explosions rocked their ship, Ethan felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility weighing heavily on him. Lives were at stake, innocent lives caught in a war not of their making. ARC's revelation is, they fought valiantly against overwhelming odds. ARCs continued to monitor communications closely from another station on board. "They are coordinating an attack pattern," ARCs exclaimed urgently as he analyzed incoming data streams on his console. Ethan turned to him sharply. "What do you see?" "If you can disrupt their command ship's communication array," ARCs began before being interrupted by another explosion rocking the ship. Ethan's eyes lit up with realization. This could be their chance. "Lena, take a team down there now. Disrupt those communications." She nodded sharply before rallying her squad and rushing toward an exit hatch leading directly into one of their shuttle bays, a plan forming rapidly in her mind, even as chaos reigned around them. As she departed with her team on board another shuttle bound for enemy lines below him, Ethan felt both pride and trepidation swell within him. This was it, the moment where everything could change forever if only they could execute flawlessly amidst overwhelming odds. The battle rages on with Lena gone on her mission, and chaos continuing unabated outside. The bridge crew worked tirelessly under pressure while keeping morale high despite mounting casualties among both human defenders above Korak and ground forces below fighting valiantly against impossible odds themselves. But even amidst despair there remained hope, a flicker igniting within each soldier's heart fueled by camaraderie forged through shared struggles over years spent training together preparing themselves for battles yet unseen. And so they fought on, determined not just survive but thrive against any foe threatening existence itself. As Ethan barked orders from the bridge of the Resolute, he couldn't shake off the feeling that this battle was only just beginning. The Ilani would not relent easily. They would come back with renewed fury after suffering such losses at human hands. But humanity would stand firm against whatever darkness lay ahead. The stealth mission, infiltrating the harbinger of doom, the atmosphere inside the Shadow's edge, was electric with tension as Ethan Gordon and his strike team prepared for their most dangerous mission yet. The stealth frigate glided silently through the black void of space, its hull designed to evade detection by enemy sensors. They were mere shadows, a ghost ship on a critical mission to infiltrate the harbinger of doom, the flagship of Commander Xander. Ethan stood at the front of the cramped armory, his heart pounding in sync with the ship's low hum. "Listen up, everyone," he said, his voice firm and steady. "We are about to take on an enemy that has slaughtered trillions across the galaxy. We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every innocent life that has been lost to the Ilani's tyranny. His team, a mix of seasoned veterans and fresh recruits, nodded in agreement. Each one understood the gravity of their task. They had trained for this moment, and now it was time to put their skills to the test. Remember, Ethan continued, our objective is to disable their weapon systems before they reach Korak. If we can do that, we'll buy our fleet precious time to regroup and counterattack. We move fast, we move quiet, and we leave no one behind. With a final nod from his team, they donned their helmets and checked their weapons, plasma rifles gleaming under the dim lights of the frigate. Ethan felt a surge of pride. They were ready. The boarding operation. As the Shadow's Edge approached the harbinger of doom, Ethan's pulse quickened. The massive alien warship loomed ahead, its dark silhouette stark against the backdrop of distant stars. He could almost feel the weight of its malevolence pressing down on him. Magnetic clamps engage, reported Lieutenant Harris from the pilot's seat. We're locked onto their hull. Let's go, Ethan commanded as he led his team into the boarding tube. The air was thick with anticipation as they prepared to breach enemy lines. The hatch hissed open, revealing dimly lit corridors that stretched into darkness. Ethan signaled for silence as they stepped onto the cold metal floor, their boots making barely a sound. Every instinct screamed at him to be cautious. They were deep behind enemy lines now. Guided by Arx's schematics, they moved stealthily through the ship's labyrinthine passages. The eerie silence was punctuated only by distant alarms and muffled voices echoing through the halls. Ethan raised a fist to halt his team as they approached a junction where two Ilani guards stood chatting in guttural tones. He motioned for them to take cover against the wall. On my mark, he whispered, his heart racing. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, he sprang into action, leading his team in a swift assault. They burst from cover, rifles blazing as they took down the guards before they could react. Green blood splattered against metal walls as Ethan's team moved with deadly efficiency. Secure the area, he barked as they swept through the room, checking every corner for potential threats. The control room. With the guards neutralized, Ethan and his team pressed on toward their primary objective, the main weapon control room. As they navigated through tight corridors and darkened chambers, tension hung in the air like a thick fog. Suddenly, an alarm blared throughout the ship, a piercing sound that sent adrenaline coursing through Ethan's veins. They've detected us. Lena shouted over the din. We need to move. Ethan cursed under his breath but pressed forward. We're almost there. Keep pushing. They rounded a corner and came face to face with another group of Ilani soldiers who had been alerted to their presence. Without hesitation, Ethan fired first, his shots finding their mark as chaos erupted around them. Fall back, one of his teammates shouted as Ilani soldiers returned fire. Ethan ducked behind cover, returning fire while keeping an eye on his team. They were outnumbered but not outmatched. Each soldier fought with fierce determination. Cover me, Ethan yelled as he sprinted toward the door leading into the control room. He reached it just in time. Slamming against it with his shoulder, he burst inside to find a chaotic scene unfolding. Ilani technicians scrambled at consoles while armed guards stood ready to defend their posts. Ethan wasted no time. He opened fire immediately, taking down two guards before they could react. His team followed suit, pouring into the room and securing it within moments. Get to those consoles, Ethan ordered as he moved toward one of the control panels. We need to disable their weapon systems. A desperate fight. As his team began interfacing with alien technology, alarms blared louder than ever, a deafening cacophony that underscored their urgency. Ethan, they're sending reinforcements. Lena shouted from her position near another console. Hold them off. I need more time. He yelled back as he focused intently on disabling critical systems. Suddenly, a massive figure appeared at the door. Commander Xander himself stormed into view, eyes blazing with fury as he surveyed the scene before him. You dare strike at my ship? Xander roared, leveling his plasma rifle at Ethan. I will enjoy ending you. Ethan dove behind cover just as Xander fired a shot that scorched past him. He could feel heat radiating from where it struck mere inches away. Xander, Ethan shouted back defiantly as he rose to return fire. You underestimate humanity. We fight for our survival. The two exchanged fire across the room, plasma bolts illuminating their surroundings in bursts of light and shadow. Xander's laughter echoed ominously through the chaos. You think you can win? Your people will be crushed beneath our heel. But Ethan wasn't backing down. He charged forward again, firing with precision while dodging incoming shots from Xander's rifle. The room was filled with chaos. His team engaged in fierce combat against waves of Ilani soldiers pouring in from every direction. Turning point. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost amidst overwhelming odds, Ethan managed to input commands into one of the consoles. The weapons systems began shutting down one by one. We're almost there, he shouted triumphantly over gunfire. Keep holding them back. But just then, Xander charged forward again, this time aiming straight for Ethan himself. They clashed in brutal hand-to-hand combat amid explosions and gunfire echoing around them. Fists flew, armor clashed against armor, as both warriors fought fiercely for dominance in this life-or-death struggle. Each blow felt like thunder. Both were evenly matched in skill and ferocity. With every ounce of strength left in him, Ethan ducked under Xander's strike and delivered a powerful punch that sent Xander staggering back momentarily, a chance he seized upon. Now, Lena shouted from across the room as she fired at approaching Ilani soldiers covering Ethan's advance toward Xander again. With renewed determination surging through him like wildfire, Ethan lunged forward again, this time tackling Xander to ground. They grappled fiercely on metal flooring, their bodies straining against each other's strength until finally, with sheer willpower, Ethan managed to wrap an arm around Xander's throat. Victory at last. With gritted teeth and sheer determination driving him onward, Ethan squeezed tightly until finally, the Ilani commander went limp beneath him. Panting heavily from exertion, he staggered back onto his feet just as alarms blared louder than ever. The harbinger of doom was crippled. Commander, the weapons are down, one of his teammates shouted amidst cheers erupting around them. Ethan looked up just in time to see human ships dropping out of warp, engaging Ilani forces head-on. Fall back to Shadow's Edge now, he ordered urgently, scooping up his rifle just as plasma bolts sizzled past him. His team disengaged from combat quickly but efficiently. They fought their way back through enemy lines until finally reaching safety within their shuttle. As they blasted free from Harbinger of Doom, Ethan allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. They had struck a blow against these invaders. But even amidst victory, the battle was far from over. As they docked with Resolute, Ethan raced onto its bridge. The sight before him filled him with both awe and fear. The human fleet surged forward, engaging Ilani forces head-on. Target critical systems. He barked orders, coordinating counterattacks while adrenaline coursed through him. Human ships unleashed hell upon Ilani vessels. The once invincible armada began crumbling under relentless pressure. But then, a monstrous construct detached from its fleet. A planet killer bristling with world-shattering weaponry began charging its power core ominously. "Sir, it's going critical," cried one sensor officer desperately. Ethan felt cold dread settle over him. It would wipe out half this system, including Korak if it fired. "This is Commander Gordon. I need volunteers for a one-way trip. We're going inside that super weapon." Lena caught his eye, her expression tight with emotion, but she nodded firmly, stepping back, allowing him space needed now. The final sacrifice. As Ethan boarded an alien shuttle meant for infiltration, his heart pounded heavily, knowing what lay ahead would be dangerous beyond measure. They knifed through chaos toward looming shape of Ilani's superweapon, their last chance at saving countless lives below. Once inside, They fought fiercely against overwhelming odds, planting explosives throughout key structural points, while desperately holding off waves upon waves of alien soldiers, determined not to let them succeed. Finally, the countdown began ticking away seconds until detonation would occur. But suddenly, a hulking figure emerged, a guardian clad heavily armored, lunging straight toward them. Ethan rolled aside, narrowly evading its attacks while firing back desperately. But rounds pinged off armor like hail. His team swarmed together, unleashing everything they had left, until finally, with one last effort, they detonated charges just moments before being overwhelmed completely. And then, a blinding flash erupted, tearing apart everything around them, sending shockwaves rippling outward. As silence fell across battlefield, the remnants of Ilani fleet fled before victorious human onslaught. Ethan dragged himself free from wreckage, feeling battered but unbowed, knowing sacrifices made would never be forgotten. The war wasn't over yet, but humanity had proven itself indomitable once more. Leading charge would always be those willing fight until last breath. And together, they would face whatever darkness lay ahead.